Welcome back to the Ghost Bunny podcast. I'm your host, Bridget Marcourt, with a brand new episode for you. My guests today are the hosts of the What's Up Weirdo podcast, John E.L. Tenney and Jessica Knapik. John E.L. Tenney is one of the most well-recognized and highly sought-after investigators of paranormal and occult phenomena in the world. He is the author of over a dozen books. John is a researcher, lecturer, and has been actively involved in the field of paranormal and anomalistic conspirational research for well over 2 decades. It's a mouthful. His columns, spanning the fields of ufology and hauntings to conspiracy theories and cryptozoology, have been printed in magazines and newspapers worldwide. He also has been interviewed extensively on the internet, radio, and television. It is estimated that over the past 30 years, more than 100,000 people have attended one of Mr. Tenney's signature weird lectures. Aside from his lectures, and due to his extended time involved in anomalistic research, he has acted as a consultant for numerous television shows and films and companies, including but not limited to NBC, A&E, Fox, Sci-Fi, the Detroit Free Press, and Huffington Post, Men's Health, and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. He has worked on numerous television shows, including Unsolved Mysteries, my favorite, Sightings, Very Scary Stories, Paranormal State, The New Class, Ghost Stalkers, and Paranormal Lockdown, Kindred Spirits, and Hellier. In 2011, Mr. Tenney created The Realm of the Weird, a bi-weekly podcast modeled after the old-time horror radio shows of the 1940s and 60s. Listeners are presented with startling, chilling, and weird tales based in fact from the actual case files of Mr. Tenney. Realm of the Weird was recently awarded Best Podcast in Michigan by Real Detroit Weekly. Aside from his time investigating unusual phenomena, John is also an accomplished painter, musician, and humorist. As a musician, John has performed with musical acts such as Social Distortion, Agent Orange, and Kid Rock. His paintings can be found on display throughout the country and have been featured at numerous art openings across America. Jessica Knapik is a noted cosmetic tattoo artist and has been featured by Cosmo, Vogue, Elle, MTV, and many more. You can usually find her at haunted locations and paranormal events across the country, an avid road tripper, explorer, dog mom, and cemetery creeper, and all-around weirdo. What's Up Weirdo podcast? Listen in as John L. Tenney and Jessica Knapik, real phone calls, paranormal, weird, witchy, alien, human, and more. No script, no filter, pure chaos, and they are your new best friends. Hey guys, thanks so much for doing the show today.
Hey, thanks for having
us. I feel like it's been so long since I've seen you guys.
Yeah, I think since we've seen each other in person, it's been 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Yeah. Has it been that long? So it was at the convention, right? The Michigan Paracon, and I didn't go this last year. Fill me in. What's happening? Was that the last year?
It was the last year.
Yeah. I had no idea. Did everybody know that it was the last year?
Pretty much, yeah. It turned into a giant paranormal party / wake for the convention, but a good time was had by all. Plus it was, of course, spooky and creepy, but there's so many lovely people and it was great.
I did not realize it was the last one. If I had known that, I definitely would have made a bigger attempt to try and go. But I was like, oh, they'll be next year.
I have it in my brain. I mean, they did it for 15 years, and I have it in my brain that even though they are letting it go now, I feel like it will rise from the dead.
I hope so, because it was really amazing. It really brought everyone together.
Yeah, just talking about spooky and weird stuff to people, then you have people karaoke singing, it's great.
I know. I feel like we should tell people a little bit because everybody from the paranormal field turns out. There's very few people that aren't there that are a part of this world. So it's an amazing kind of family reunion. And then everybody's kind of working and doing their own thing during the day and meeting all the fans and doing their lectures or speaking engagements, whatever's happening, game shows, and things like that. And then at the end of the night, and it's a pretty small casino in a very, very small town, at the end of the night, we all go to the bar and hang out and get buzzed and karaoke and just have a great time. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah, it was really great this year. And I think over the course, I don't know, Jessica might know, I think over the course of the weekend, it's close to 5,000 people show up.
Yeah, I don't know the count, but it's always crazy. It's always like a family reunion. Like everybody we know goes, speakers, guests, and we get to do whatever we want. Like, especially me and Tenney, like they ask us, what are you doing for your presentation? And we're like, you'll find out when we get there. It's going to be sick. So
we don't even know.
Yeah, I know. I'm like right up to the last second. But this year last year and this year, I did a version of the Tonight Show where I'm like Jimmy Fallon and I wear a full men's suit and I have like guests from the paranormal on my show. But this year we like amped it up a bit and I got to have the sexy sax man from the movie The Lost Boys like play in my show. So he was like my Tonight Show band. So like when my guest walked out, he played a little bit of sax. And then at the end, he was my musical guest. So after my guest, I was like, and now my musical guest, Tim Capello, and he played the sax song from the Lost Boys and everybody like lost their minds.
I love it. That's so fun.
It was so surreal.
And I love that there's creative freedom like that. Like, it's not like, okay, so you have to have like a PowerPoint presentation and do it from this time to this time or whatever. I mean, I know it is timed events, but like, it's not so, it has to look like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, for Jessica's was wild because she had the sax man from Lost Boys, but like my lecture, like I walked out on stage and took my shoes and socks off and just walked around barefoot and talked about witchcraft and UFOs for an hour.
Well, make yourself at home, John.
Yeah.
So, okay, you guys are also out of Michigan, right? You guys are locals.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is like far. They do it in the Upper Peninsula, so it's a little far. But yeah, we do events down here of our own, and obviously we'd love to do more.
I've heard about that Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
The Yoopers.
Yeah, it gets weird. So the Yoopers, the people who live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, call us trolls because there's a bridge that connects the lower to the Upper Peninsula. So technically we live under a bridge. So they call us trolls down here. But the Upper Peninsula is wild. It has, Bigfoot and UFO sightings and Dogman. But Michigan is just weird overall. I mean, we have that stuff kind of in the Lower Peninsula as well. But up there, it gets pretty spooky.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you guys on, because I'm going to Michigan here really soon. This time is going by so fast. Like, I feel like it was just September 1st and all of a sudden we're like halfway through the month already. And I'm like, how is this happening? So I'm going to Michigan in October, which I'm really excited about. So I want to do spooky things while I'm there. I want to hang out with you guys while I'm there. I'm hoping you guys will be around. I have one night that's in your area. And my brother lives in Traverse City. So we'll be spending a night near Detroit, or 2 nights actually near Detroit. And then we're going to go to Traverse City. And Traverse City isn't considered the Upper Peninsula, though, is it?
No, it's still lower.
He's still
peninsula.
A troll.
Yeah, he's a troll.
So I thought this is a perfect time to talk about Michigan and like all the crazy stories and all the weirdness and strangeness that goes on there, ghost stories, anything you guys got for me. But first, since it's been a while since I've had either of you on the show, I wanted to just talk a little bit about your past and what got you into the paranormal, just so the listeners now know. And John, for you, didn't it start with an NDE? I mean,
it kind of did. Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up in a haunted house or anything like that. I was just a punk rock kid in the 80s who didn't like being told what I could and couldn't think about, and I made friends as a teenager. When I would skip school, I would go to our public library, and there was a retired doctor who would hang out there, who was Jack Kevorkian. And so I would...
No.
Yeah, so I would sit at the library with Jack Kevorkian and talk about crazy things with him. And then he introduced me to other people. And then I ended up starting to meet, like, going to metaphysical conventions and meeting witches. And then I met a guy who was a he specialized in political assassinations of the 60s and 70s. And so I started helping him with lectures on JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Black Panther Party, like all that stuff. And then when I was 18, I had a heart attack and died. And obviously they got me back, or I'm a ghost right now.
We think, yeah, it could be a ghost.
And after I recovered, I kind of wanted to go to college and learn what had happened to me when I died. So I started taking a lot of classes on folklore and psychology. And in Michigan, you can actually major in folklore and fairy tales. So I thought, I'm going to be a history teacher with a major in fairy tales. But then a friend of mine called me, this is about 1992, he called me and said, do you want to drop out of college and work on unsolved mysteries as a researcher? And so that was really the beginning of my professional career.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your ND. Did you, because it wasn't typical, right?
No, when people have death experiences, they usually have one of three. I mean, there's more than three. We kind of classify them just to easily talk about them. But the first one is the one everybody talks about because it's easiest, because it's real happy. It's like a tunnel of light, and all your past pets and all your friends and relatives that have passed on welcoming you to the afterworld. The second one, which is actually the most common to happen to people, is just an out-of-body experience. People will see an EMT or a doctor working on them as they are passed away. There's actually, it's experienced a lot by women in pregnancy. Like they will have an out-of-body experience and then find out later that something had happened, but they knew it already when they kind of come back. The third one, which is what I had, is kind of difficult to discuss. It's called a void experience, which you literally go from being in this world right now where there's all this stuff to being alone in infinity. And there's nothing there. There's no sound. It's not black, because black is the absence of light. There's no light. There's no absence. There's nothing there. So you're in a place completely empty, and you're there forever since there's no time. And you're all by yourself. Your only consciousness inside of infinity forever. And it's hard to talk about because of those wonky experiences, but that's what happened to me. I went from being in this world to being nowhere forever.
I wonder what it is, why people experience it differently. Like, I wonder why it's not just the same for everybody.
I think from talking to other death experiencers, like a lot of it, I think, has to do with your kind of mental construct of the universe and what you expect the next life to be like, right? So I was raised, it always made sense to me, my experience, because I was raised without any religion. It wasn't that my parents were anti-religious. They just didn't have any religious, ideas, and I wasn't brought up with any. So I always, in my brain, understand it as like, I didn't have an expectation of anything to happen.
Yeah.
So when I died, I just went to this place where there was no expectation of anything.
Yeah.
Do you think too it's maybe because they knew you were coming back, so they're not going to show you too much stuff, too many secrets, because they're like, hey, we're throwing him back so he can't know everything?
It's a good question. And I will tell you that when I go on ghost hunts and when I investigate haunted places, there are two ways that ghosts will relate to me. And one is they recognize that I have been to a place that they are. And so they're like, oh, this guy has this familiar thing about him. He understands where we're at. But then the other side of it is I've encountered spirits that are really angry that I got to come back and be alive and that they don't. And they're very upset that I am here now and they can't do the same thing I did.
Interesting. Huh.
You guys know it's my favorite time of year right now. The weather is turning cooler. There's football games on TV, pumpkin spice lattes for everyone, and slipping into those cozy clothes, especially from Quince. Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And it's not just that. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. That includes beautiful leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim, and so much more. How are they able to do it? By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And of course, premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. I have the comfiest joggers that are cute enough to wear out running errands or cozy enough to wear just sitting around the house. Plus, I got my first cashmere sweater, like a zip-up hoodie. It's so soft and so warm, and I'm loving it. Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/ghostbunny for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/ghostbunny to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/ghostbunny.
You have done some stuff about animal ghosts too, right? Like you tell me about it, because I know Jessica, that you are super into it. Yeah, okay, just so the listeners know too, Jessica got me the cutest mug that I use every other morning, because every other day it's dirty. But it's a cute coffee mug that says "I love my ghost dog." And I love it so much. Like, seriously, it's one of the best things anybody's ever got me. I love it so much. But you lost your dog not that long ago, Bean, who was like your everything. And you have a new one now, Toad. And that's why it says Jessica and Toad for those that are watching this. But John, tell us about animal ghosts.
Yeah. So it's always been really important to me. Like, I guess it's just the way I've always approached paranormal phenomena, is very empathetically and with a lot of kindness and care. And so one of the things that I used to bring up at my lectures, and still bring up at my lectures, is it doesn't really make sense to me that humans are the only living thing that would go on after death, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all animals. And so, like, whether it's a dog or a cat or a bird or a pet a pet chameleon, like, they have a life energy as well. And so, in researching cases and coming across all these different experiences that people have, like, they do, like, the animals persist. They show up sometimes in their original form, sometimes in new forms they even show up. We've talked a lot, her and I, about Bean showing up as like a man in her dreams.
Yeah.
And
what does he look like?
It's always different people, but like, I don't date that much, and I've had boyfriends, but not like, I don't seek it out. And in the dreams, it's such an instant connection that, like, we've known each other forever, and I know that person is like my soulmate, and they kind of look different every time, but it's like, is that him? Like, can humans or animals become like untethered from a body type in that realm? I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's trying to hang out, or I don't know. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know who else it would be.
I really think that once you're untethered from your biology, whether you're a human, dog, or cat, like, you exist in a realm where you can be what needs to be, right? Like, we all know that, like, spirits can present themselves as like a feather on your doorstep. It's not you become an invisible version of yourself, right? Like, ghosts can present themselves as a song on the radio. And I think that human animals and non-human animals can do that. I mean, I know for sure I had 2 ghost cats in my house for a very long time after my cats passed away. They were way more active once they died. And like, even my father, when I moved my parents in with me to take care of them, I told my dad the first week he was here, I was like, there's a ghost cat in this house. Just be prepared for it. And my dad was like, oh, there's no such thing as ghost cats. And then 2 weeks later, he was doing laundry and he's like, by the way, there's a ghost cat in this house. And I was like, yeah, I told you, like, it's here.
Yeah. Fair warning. Yeah. Well, there's 2 cats asleep behind me on the bed. So if you see them moving, they're not ghost cats. They are alive.
Well, I was listening to your last episode too, and I heard that you saw a literal full body apparition the day you brought home your new dog. So, like, are ghosts connected to our new animals too?
Yeah, well, I really felt that because she used to be so involved in the mansion and the mansion pets and the girls that lived at the Playboy Mansion and stuff, I really felt that she just came to see the new addition.
I love that story. That was so crazy.
Yeah. So I always thought it wasn't scary. I mean, it was scary as in it's shocking to see somebody standing in your doorway when there shouldn't be somebody there. But it's not like a scary story. Like, I was worried that she was going to, be lurking in my room or something like that.
Yeah.
And, the thing is too, is like, historically, if you look, not to get too nerdy, but a little, that's just my brain. Like, if you look historically throughout, like, the records of whether it's Egypt or Rome or Asian cultures, like, animal spirits are there. They've always been there, as much as human spirits have been. I mean, even to this, like if you look back through Roman stories of the supernatural, there was this idea that like there were ghost horses that could take you to the realm of the undead, like they could take you to a different world, but they would only come at night and you could ride their backs to this magical world. To this day, and people don't even think about it, to this day, we talk about nightmares that we have. Like those are, it means night horses. Like we're still talking about ghost horses taking us to a dream world.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that. I didn't even realize that was a connection like that. So interesting.
Yeah. And so, I mean, animals, they're here.
And the Egyptians, I mean, they worshipped cats and everything too, and had them in the afterlife. Like they were mummifying them and doing all kinds of things. So they definitely thought there was something very special about cats. Yeah. Jessica, how did you get interested in all the spooky stuff?
So I feel like I followed the path of a lot of, well, aside from seeing ghosts in my house when I was little, but.
Oh, just aside from that.
Just aside from that. But,
that part didn't count at all.
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of people started with like Unsolved Mysteries, X-Files, just being a spooky kid or being into like, I don't know, being alternative, being into like metal, being a weird kid. But then, I did see ghosts in my house. Growing up several times, there were shadow figures, but then there was also like figures that you could see fully. Again, like me and Tenney always say this, like, I feel like it's real. And when you tell it to somebody, it's real because you know what they were wearing. And that, again, on your first episode of this podcast, I know you described the ghost outfit to a T, and that's exactly what happened to me. I knew what he was wearing. So you know what you saw.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot growing up, and then, just got into going to spooky places from road trips. And then obviously it like boosted into another stratosphere being friends with Tenney. We get to go to all these places and do all these things and have like private experiences at these places. So, yeah.
Why do you guys think Michigan is so spooky or weird?
I feel like everywhere is spooky and weird.
In my lectures, I talk about the fact that like if you if you invest enough time and money into any place, you'll realize that every place is as weird as any place.
Yeah.
But Michigan, I really don't know what it is about Michigan is really creepy to me. Just, I mean, obviously I'm born and raised here, so I'm biased, but.
Wait, can I interject? Because the last time we spoke, which was a while ago now, but we were talking about the massive mushroom underneath.
I was just about to say, we do have the humongous fungus. We have a giant mushroom that grows underneath the upper and lower peninsula and underneath the lake. It's that big. The mycelial network is that big. And maybe that has something to do with it. But, there's also, Michigan was one of those areas where during kind of the last baby ice age, Michigan was under this mile-high sheet of ice for thousands of years, and it rolled back and kind of scraped Michigan flat. That's why we don't have any mountains or anything like that, and it's where most of the lakes come from because it's meltwater. And I feel like there was this new opportunity, like when Michigan appeared, for strangeness to be like, oh, so there's like, it's a clean slate. We can start putting everything here. We can start putting haunted places, dogmen, lake monsters, Bigfoot, ghosts, like we can just put it all here.
Yeah. And they did.
Yeah.
And they did.
And a lot of weirdos come from here. All of us included. It's just birthed forth all of the weirdos.
That's funny. Well, I know that, I found a list that John did a long time ago about the 10 most haunted cities in Michigan, and Traverse City was number 2.
Traverse City gets a lot of reports. I still get probably maybe a year, I'll probably get 30 emails. And if I'm getting 30 emails, that means that there's a lot going on there because I'm not the only investigator in Michigan, right? Like there's got to be, if I'm getting 30, there's going to be 1,000 reports going out somewhere.
Yeah. Tell me about some of those reports.
So downtown Traverse City gets a lot of like solid full apparitions and doppelgängers in it all the time.
Okay.
So the doppelganger thing in Traverse City gets really weird to me. So I get out of those reports that I get every year, there will be a half dozen of people who are shopping the downtown area with someone they know. One of the people that they know will like go into a store. The other person will go and get ice cream or something. They'll see their friend 2 or 3 blocks up, walk up to their friend. The person will go into a place and then they'll realize that their friend is in a store behind them. Like they see double versions of people all over the city, and it happens constantly. And I don't know why it's happening in Traverse City. And then Traverse City gets a lot of UFO sightings as well. So I like to like kind of smush them all together. Like there's aliens and they're like in the lake and they're coming into Traverse City and just pretending to be human beings.
Yeah, well, because for people that don't know, Traverse City is right on Lake Michigan. Like there's lots of beachfront, cute hotels and condos and stuff. And it's right on Lake Michigan. So, I mean, they talk about aliens having underwater bases and things like that. So Lake Michigan would be perfect.
Yeah, I really do. Like, that's the other thing. So like the way that my emails are set up, like I'll get 30 ghost, doppelganger, weird reports from Traverse City, but then I have another folder and I probably get 10 or 15 a year from Traverse City of people seeing UFOs. And the majority of the time, it's the UFOs coming out or going into the lake.
Oh, interesting.
I know you guys know how much I love a good mystery. I mean, I had 2 murder mystery birthday parties at the Playboy Mansion, one set in the 1930s and one in the 1940s. That's why I love June's Journey so much. It's a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story taking you back to the glamour of the 1920s. With a diverse cast of characters, each new scene takes you further through a thrilling murder mystery story that sets the main protagonist, June Parker, on a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover her family's many secrets. The game really encourages you to engage your sense of observation to find the hidden clues, and each chapter uncovers a collection of dazzling hidden object spectacles for you to solve. Plus, you get to dive into June's captivating quest to uncover a scandalous hidden family secret. Dun dun dun. And you can customize your own very own luxury estate island. You know I love doing that. Escape reality and immerse yourself into the world of June Parker. In fact, I'm on vacation right now and I have lots of airport downtime and road trip downtime, and you know I'm going to be playing June's Journey. Can you crack the case? Download June's Journey for free today on iOS and Android.
All right, well, I'm going to be looking for all these things when I'm in Traverse City.
I should hope so.
I'm going to try and do, I think I saw online that Traverse City does a ghost tour through the downtown. So I'm going to try and get together with those people and do maybe even a podcast, but definitely at least do the tour while I'm there.
Yeah, and there's the old Traverse City State Mental Hospital that's there.
Okay, so I did that last time I was there.
Yeah.
And they are very much, this is not haunted.
Right.
And I was like, bullshit. This is so haunted. Like, stop.
It's always interesting.
We have an event. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's always interesting when a place that is haunted is run by people who want to say it's not haunted.
Yeah.
We have an event coming up too, kind of south of there, but on the west side of Michigan in October with Adam Berry from Ghost Hunters and Kindred Spirits at a haunted mansion called Felt Mansion. Not only are there ghost stories in the mansion, but also like around the mansion, there's a story of these things called the Michigan Melon Heads, which
I just saw something about that. Tell me what this is.
It's debatable. There's different origin stories. Some are that they're like little weird cryptids or aliens. Other stories are like that it was an old hospital or insane asylum and they were doing experiments on children and that made their heads get huge and they threw them in the woods and forgot about them and they're around the mansion forever. So me and Tenney have been there once. So we were poking around the woods yelling, "Melon heads, we love you." So we get to go back, but the mansion itself is stunning. All the furniture in there, all the rooms, it's really big. So we get to investigate the mansion for 3 nights with Adam and a bunch of people who are coming to the, like people who bought tickets to the event. And then, we get access to the grounds. There's I want to say there's like a chapel outside. We get access to that. So we'll see if we turn up anything, but I'm really excited.
I'm going to make people go outside and look for the melons for sure.
Yeah, we have to look for the melons.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what's going on around there, you definitely do.
Yeah.
Tell me about Dogman.
So Dogman is interesting because it's kind of a relatively new cryptid. And by that, I mean, you really start getting reports in the mid to late 80s, and then it really amps up in the 90s. And in Michigan, it hit really hard around 92 or 93 because like a radio DJ wrote a song about the Dogman. And so that's where it explodes into like the popular mindset. But what's interesting is you really only have 3 places where people see dogmen, which is Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio. And so it's almost like there's this group of cryptids that kind of migrate back and forth, and they use kind of Michigan as the way to get from Wisconsin to Ohio.
Yeah.
Upright walking, 7 feet tall. I did an investigation once on the east side of Michigan where a guy said that he saw a dogman, and it was leaning up against his wire fence on the back of his property, and it was smoking a cigarette.
What?
Yeah, and he went toward it. He thought it was like someone in a Halloween costume, and so he started walking because it's his property. So he starts walking to get this guy off his property, and he said it flipped over backwards and took off running on all 4s.
Whoa. That would freak me out for sure.
Yeah. And so he was pretty freaked out.
Wow. What places would you recommend in the Detroit Ann Arbor area? I have been to the Eloise. I did that with Detroit Paranormal. They took me on a tour there. I don't know if there's tours there anymore now.
I think there are. It changes hands a lot. I think they're still doing tours there. They reached out to me this year to do something there, which I'm still working on logistically, but I think they still do tours there.
Do you know the history of the Eloise at all that you can let the listeners know?
I mean, Eloise's history is just one of the many notorious kind of state hospitals, which at a certain point, whether it's Eloise or Pennhurst or Traverse City or like any of these old state hospitals, like they were built with good intentions. They were doing the best that they could at the time with the resources that they had. It's only later on when they become overcrowded and they start getting people working there who don't have the best intentions. But the majority of Eloise now is has been taken down to the ground. I think there's only a few buildings left, but there's, people see, it's kind of traditional. They see spirits of little girls, little boys. It's always interesting to me, especially when you're dealing with spirits that are probably from before the 1950s, when someone will say like they saw a little girl or they saw a little boy. Most little girls and boys looked exactly the same, like up until about 1940 or 50. Like I've got pictures of my grandfather and he's wearing a little dress and he's got his ringleted hair. Like if you were to see that ghost, you'd now assume it's a little girl. But that's kind of putting yourself on it. Eloise, to me, I investigated it in the 90s when most of the buildings were still there, and it seemed very calm. But I think it suffers the same fate as a lot of these places, which is they become more haunted the more they're investigated.
Well, we bring so much energy to them.
Yeah, 100%. And once the entities and spirits in a place recognize that people are trying to communicate with them, they're like, oh, like this is my shot. I better shoot it.
Do you think that spirits have nothing to do with, let's just say the Eloise, have nothing to do with it, but they see that a lot of people are going there to communicate, will like go there to like try and communicate too because they have a message?
Yeah, I think that's actually, so people don't like to these days for whatever reason, but I still like to investigate graveyards. And people always say like, well, why would there be a ghost in a graveyard? Like nobody dies in a graveyard. So why would there be ghosts there? And I think it's because graveyards are a source of like emotional energy. People go there and they outpour their grief. They go there and they laugh. They have happy memories there. And we humans living like charge it up with this energy. And I feel like the spirits in the neighborhoods that surround cemeteries are like, oh, what's going on over there? Like people are constantly trying to, commune with the dead in the cemetery. And so the spirits will, exactly what you said, Bridget, like they're drawn toward it, almost like a beacon.
Yeah, it seems like it. Because I feel like there's other times too where people are like, well, I don't know why this ghost would be here. They didn't live here. They didn't die here. But we like see this guy in a brown suit going back and forth, but nobody can recognize himself. And I'm like, I think it's maybe because there's so many investigations going on here. He just has a message.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the difficulties with investigating a location is, if I retain a certain amount of my personality after my biology dies, and if I am even no longer tethered in time, I'm going to go back to places that I didn't live at, but I have good memories of. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like sometimes people will be like, oh, we see a guy here, but no guy ever lived here. And it's like, no, but he might have been there once and had like a really good time. And so now he just goes back to revisit it.
I kind of think that way about the Queen Mary, because one of the biggest ghost stories on the Queen Mary is the little girl in the pool area. But there's no accounts of any little girl ever drowning in that area and stuff. And I just think maybe this was like a family vacation or a trip. They were coming to the United States or whatever. And this was like, and she got to swim in this pool and she was so excited and happy. And maybe this was just her really, really happy place.
I 100% agree with you.
Bridget, do you listen, I have like several artifacts from Eloise and I have extra. I don't know if you keep a collection of haunted items at wherever you live, but if you want some, I will totally give you some.
Thank you. That's so nice of you. I do not collect any haunted artifacts, and not because I'm like so against it. I just have never done it. And I was offered one thing one time from the Washoe Millionaires Club in Virginia City. And they gave me this like nail for like, it was in the window at one point. And for some reason I had it in my hand and I remember thinking, I can't take this home. Like I felt really like something bad was going to happen if I took this home. Gosh. And so later in the investigation, I just put it on like a windowsill inside the washing. I was like, okay.
We have so much stuff.
I have in my garage, Bridget, most of places obviously that we go, like sometimes they're broken down or abandoned or they're not being taken care of really well. So I have in my garage, and I've been building it for years. When I go to a location, I'll find a piece of broken glass, and I've been creating like a stained glass window of all the haunted locations I've ever been through. And so like when it's done, you'll be able to look through the window glass of like 100 different haunted locations all at one time.
I don't know what kind of energy, what kind of like you're building something where like it's going to be like a time warp or something.
Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, I take pieces from like every haunted location I go to. My rule is it can't be connected. So it has to be on the ground, or it has to be like, if it's an outdoor place, I'll take a piece of grass or I'll take a flower and I'll put it in a jar. So I have like probably 30 or 40 locations of stuff in my house right now. So if anything was going to haunt the shit out of my house, it would have, like the most notorious haunted places in the entire country. I have pieces from all of them in my house. So.
Oh my gosh. It's funny because Holly and I were just talking about this unrelated on a different podcast. And I was talking about Bodie. Are you guys familiar with the ghost town Bodie? It's in California. It's up by Yosemite.
No.
Mm-mm. It's incredible. You guys should look it up. But it had like this legend to it, to where I remember seeing something, some sort of like little documentary type thing, maybe on the Travel Channel or something like that, back when I was a kid. And they made it sound like in the middle of the night, like these people just like left and there was still like food cooking on the stove and the plates were still there and their clothes are still there and they just like disappeared. So I was like fascinated with it forever and finally went for my birthday one year. And I think the story isn't quite like that. I think it was a booming mining town and it was slowly dwindling. And eventually the last people left and they just left everything as is because they weren't taking everything. And it's a little less dramatic, I think.
Right.
But so much of it's still intact. Like you can see, like the coffin shop, there's still like coffins in there. And like, there's just so much still intact. But they say that if you take anything from there, that you'll like be possessed. And there's like all this stuff and letters of people that send so much stuff back of stuff that they've taken from there. And so I'm like, I learned my lesson. You don't take anything.
Yeah, I get that.
I just watched a little YouTube documentary about the people who work at the post offices in Hawaii who have to, all of the rocks that get sent back from people who take rocks from Hawaii. And then like a week later, they have to send them back to Hawaii because stuff starts going wrong in their house. And
I tried to get my friend Mark, he went there for his honeymoon, and I said, I want some of that black sand or like those little pebbles, like bring me black sand. And then he goes there and he goes, everybody says I'm not allowed to take it. And I'm like, okay, fine, don't take it. But then he got back from his trip and he like had these gym shoes on like while he was there, and he shook them out and a bunch of that black rock came out. And he's like, well, I didn't mean to take it. I took it on accident. So I have it. And he put it in a little glass jar for me and gave it to me. So I have it. I'm not cursed. But I feel like that was the loophole. Like he took it by accident.
Yeah.
So I feel like I manifested him taking it by accident and then I got what I wanted. But
yeah. But it's funny. I mean, there has to be something to it. I don't know if it's just people get in their heads because they think things are going to happen to them, or if there's really something that's going on when you take an object from somewhere where you're not supposed to.
It's probably your intentions too. Like, I don't take this stuff around and be like, oh, this is from the most haunted stuff. It's just like a little thing that I do for me. It's like a memory thing. And I want to celebrate its importance. I'm not trying to make it into something nasty or like make money off of it. This is like for me to let, I don't know, whatever know that I think it's that special. So I think it's like your respect level could have like, why would they come after me? I'm not doing it in any malicious way. I'm doing it because I think that place is really important and it deserves to be remembered and lived on, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Whitney, because I've always wanted to go to the Whitney. Have you guys been?
Yeah.
Yep, many times.
We've spoken there.
Oh,
We've
you
done
have?
events there.
Can you tell people what it is?
So the Whitney is one of the like oldest historic buildings still left in Detroit. And, you know, it was built by turn of the century mogul magnate. And now it is an operating restaurant and kind of event place. They have the Ghost Bar.
Love
What's
it.
really interesting is that as a haunted location for years, I don't think this still happens, but for probably 20 to 25 years, when the chefs would create a daily special, they would make 2 extra portions and take them upstairs and leave them in the morning for the ghosts, the resident ghosts, as like a sign of respect for the ghosts. Of course, the food was never eaten. It was just completely done. But again, that comes back to the intention of it, right? Like everything will be good. Just show some respect and kindness for the entities that are there, and everything's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of sightings of apparitions, lots of EVP stuff happening. There's, I think it's on the second floor. There is a lot of object movement where things will like be in one place and then they'll be in another. And obviously there's the bar that's there too, like constant reports of like, you know, stuff being pushed off the bar, glasses being pushed off the bar. So if I always tell people, if you ever get a chance to go to Detroit, like the Whitney is the place to at least go and have a drink in a super historic place in Detroit. Most, you know, a lot of places, we don't have a lot of old places in Detroit just because they've been ripped down over the years or fallen into disrepair and ruin. So to be able to go into a turn of the century mansion and have a drink and know that there's some ghosties in there is like perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just like a regular building. It's literally a mansion. It's so gorgeous. Everywhere in there, there's woodwork, there's stained glass everywhere, there's crazy lamps everywhere. It's so opulent. Like and especially us, like, I don't know, I'm like a little punk rock kid. So is Tenney. Like, we're going into spooky places and stuff. And then you walk into this place and you're like, oh, it's like I'm on the Titanic, but it's haunted. It's crazy. It's got a vibe. The place I think has the most vibe is up by the Ghost Bar. That's literally what it's called. We're not just calling it that. It's really, they call themselves the Ghost Bar. The ladies' bathroom on the floor of the Ghost Bar has such a vibe. It's so scary. And it's one of those bathrooms where like you walk in and there's like a sitting room in there. And then you go to like the stalls. So like the little sitting room is so spooky, you guys. It is. Every time I'm in there, I'm like, nope, it's weird in here.
And there's a little outbuilding too that is pretty notorious for people who love doing EVP sessions. It's really active in there for voices. So it's like a little carriage house out back.
What would you guys say is the most haunted spot in Michigan?
Oof.
Probably that's one of them. Or like, I don't, Masonic Temple. John King Books is haunted too.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the Masonic Temple. When I was in Detroit, I tried to go, and my brother's even like a Mason, and we tried to get in, but
I know we want to take you there. We're going to try and work it out.
Yeah.
I really want us all to go there.
Can we go there when I come this time?
I want to go there.
I'll throw the line
God.
out. I'm really good friends with some of the archivists and librarians there, and I don't think they'd have a problem with us walking around. I've walked around it before and gone behind walls and seen secret staircases and held one of George Washington's Bibles is there. Like, it's an amazing building. And what's really crazy, because it was built at a time when there was this anti-Masonic sentiment in the United States. Mm-hmm. So it was designed to be a completely self-sustaining building. You can actually, there's giant stones that can be pushed in front of all of the windows to make the building impenetrable. And then it has its own power generating station in the basement and its own inlet to the Detroit River. So it has its own water supply.
Whoa.
Like, it's wild in that place.
Yeah.
And it's spooky, like insanely spooky. There's so much energy and so many weird vibes in that place. Because, of course, I think it's the second largest Masonic temple in the world. Like, there are recreations of like crypts inside of it.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's wild.
And I heard there's like secret passageways.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and is there a pool on an upper floor?
Yeah, I think the pool is on the 5th floor. So there's a
barber shop too. There's everything in that building.
Yeah, there's what's called a floating floor, which is actually Detroit's roller derby team practice there. It's on like the 3rd floor. It's this giant gymnasium, and because the Freemasons used to do marching, to not tire their feet out, they built the floor on top of springs, so the floor like floats. And you have to remember, this was all built in like the 1920s. Like, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah, that they even thought about that and had the technology to do it. I mean, not that springs are some big technology, but like even thought to do it like that, you know?
Yeah. And it's cool when you get into like some of the elevators, like you'll see that the building is, whatever, 8 stories tall. But you'll get in the elevator and there'll only be like 4 buttons. And then you'll see that there are like other buttons, like it's like 1 and then 1M, 2, 2M, 3, 3M. And if you press any of the M buttons, you can't go to them. But like the other 4 floors are like open so you can look around. But there's 4 floors that are like Masons only can go there.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
I think I can get a sense.
And they still do concerts there. Like I've seen Morrissey there, and when you're there, it's like a religious experience. Like, you're seeing this like crazy big artist in the tiniest, creepiest place, and it has the best acoustics. It's the coolest place to see a show.
What are some of the ghost stories associated with it?
So there's a lot of performing ghosts in the main auditorium. There's a lot of like people on the stage, and if you're in the auditorium, you'll hear people singing, you'll hear people doing performances, you'll hear lines of poetry like coming from somewhere. But throughout the building, so I think Henry Ford has been seen in there. So he used to have an office in the Masonic Temple. So like his piano and his desk and everything are still there. So he gets seen a lot in the building. And then there are the initiation rites into Freemasonry are supposed to be secret. Mm-hmm. And so when you're walking through, if you're aware of the initiatory rites of the Freemasons, like, you will sometimes hear people doing the initiatory rites or parts of the initiatory rites, which is super freaky, because like one of them is kind of knocking on a door. And so like as you're walking through the hallways, when you get near the initiation rooms, there's a lot of them, like you'll hear these solid hardwood doors like knock as you walk past them. And it's almost like someone is trying to initiate you from the afterworld. It's really weird.
Wow. That's so cool. I can't wait. I hope we can make this happen. It's so cool.
I know, we have to.
Yeah.
With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. You guys know how much I love this time of year, fall and autumn. And you know how much I love to theme things. And part of that theming is what I like to eat. Make this fall the tastiest season yet with farm fresh produce and easy autumn-inspired recipes delivered right to your door with HelloFresh. And I love going out to eat, but with HelloFresh, I can whip up tasty restaurant-style meals in my own kitchen without the high price tag of takeout and in less time than it takes to get the delivery. HelloFresh delivers all the pre-portioned ingredients you'll need to make easy, homemade meals. All the proteins, all the veggies, the sauces, the spices, and more. They all arrive in your box, along with simple instructions that walk you through each step in the cooking process. HelloFresh has tons of options for whatever you're craving. Choose from a changing menu of over 50 recipes each week, which is great for me because I'm super particular. Plus, take your pick from over 100 market add-ons like desserts, yum, breakfast, and snacks. And you can choose meals that match you and your family's lifestyle with preferences like fit and wholesome, quick and easy, or even vegetarian. You'll always find something to love from HelloFresh. From hearty dinners to game day snacks, HelloFresh has a variety of recipes and flavors to perfectly accompany sweater weather. We're looking at you, pumpkin spice. HelloFresh saves me so much time trying to figure out what I'm going to make, going to the grocery store, and I get to customize it to my particular taste, which is very important for me. It also helps me eat healthier and makes cooking more enjoyable. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freeghostbunny. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals by going to HelloFresh.com/freeghostbunny. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
I want to get back to Michigan Ghost in a minute, but there's 2 questions, one I have for each of you that I really want to make sure I get to. John, you've witnessed an exorcism.
Yeah, in 1999.
Will you tell us about it?
I'll tell you as much as I can. So I talk about this in my lectures. I have broken all of my television and movie NDAs just because I don't think that there should be secrets. But I do have one with the Vatican, and I break it a little bit, but not the whole way because it's the Vatican and they have a lot more money and power than a television network does.
Yes.
But yeah, in 1999, a friend of mine who works for the Archdiocese of Detroit asked me if I wanted to observe an exorcism that was sanctioned by the Holy See, by the Vatican. And I guess from what I was told and everything that I experienced, when the Vatican sanctions an exorcism, they need to have a non-Catholic involved. And you're there as kind of an insurance agent, like you watch for impropriety. That's all you do. And you don't have a vested interest in the church. So you're called, I was technically called a disinterested third party. And so I said, yeah. And there was a long drawn out, had to go to my doctor and get stress tests to make sure I was physically okay. And I went to therapists to make sure I was mentally okay to handle it. And then one day a car came and they were like, it's happening. And they drove me to this location and I walked into a room and the client was there restrained like on a mattress on a floor. There were no windows in the room. There was a priest, an assisting priest, and me. And once the door is closed and the exorcism begins, you can't leave. So there was like a bathroom and the door had been taken off. That's where you could go to get like some rest or if you had to go to the bathroom or whatever. But you never technically left the room because the door was off its hinges. And so we were there for 32 hours while they conducted this exorcism. And nobody's head spun around in circles. Nobody floated, but there were dozens upon dozens of languages spoken by the client who did not have the education to be able to speak those languages. And there were body contortions, which I would have thought would have broken bones and hurt muscles, and they didn't. There were skin and face manifestations that would appear and disappear on the persons. Their eye color changed. Their voices would change. It was a massively, massively strange experience, which I still, all these years later, am still kind of processing. Because as a person who's raised without any religion, it's like, what did I just see? What did I just experience? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I always say when I tell this, so to prepare me for the exorcism, I was told to I wasn't allowed to talk to the client. because the client is trying to get the exorcism to stop. And so they'll do anything to break the priest and the assisting priest's attempts. So they were like, don't talk to the client. The client is going to talk to you. Just don't respond. And they're going to say terrible things. And of course, I grew up a punk rock kid. So I'm like, they can throw whatever they want at me. Like, I've heard all the dirty words. Like, they can say whatever they want. It's not going to chill me to the bone. And at a certain point, the client kind of woke up, because they sleep the majority of the time, actually. But the client woke up and locked eyes with me, and first of all, should not have known my name, but said John. So I looked at the client, and then really intensely said to me, do you remember when you were 6 and your mother bought you a Spider-Man coloring book, but you already had that coloring book, so you threw it back in your mom's face and she cried? She still thinks about that. Do you know how much that hurt her? And so this is something that did happen to me when I was 7 years old that I'd never told anybody. And somehow I have always carried that around in my heart because it was the first time I made my mom cry. And I have never told anyone about it. And the fact that this person who didn't know me pulled a story out of my heart and head that no one knew but me. Like, I had to go and sit in the bathroom for like an hour because I was just flummoxed by, it was like the scariest thing anyone could have ever done.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy.
So crazy.
How did it end? Was it successful? Was it?
Yeah, so that they also told me, like, so everybody that was involved, that the church, they were like, so there's going to be they told me this, they go, there's going to be this point at the end where everybody, you, the priest, the client, the assisting priest, where you all know that you're going to be dead in the next couple of seconds. It's going to be like the worst panic attack you ever had. You're going to get tunnel vision. Your heart will start to race and you'll know you'll be dead in the next 5 or 6 seconds. Just push through that because it's almost over. And I was like, what? Like, how do you, what? And so like 32 hours in, there was this moment where the priest was doing a prayer and he stopped and I felt my heart race and I looked at the assisting priest and he was looking at me and the client had this kind of look of fear on his face and I started to get tunnel vision and like an anxiety attack. I get anxiety attacks because of my death experience. So I know what an anxiety attack feels like. And my heart started racing and I was like, oh, I'm going to be dead. And then boom, the client went to sleep and the 3 of us in the room started laughing. And the main priest looked at me and he goes, it's over. We won.
Wow.
And it was done.
And I wonder how they know. How do they know that they won? How?
I have no idea.
Crazy. That's so fascinating. It really, really is. And Jessica, I wanted to ask you because I remember you telling me that you had a really insane past life thing happen. And I want you to tell everybody about it.
Oh gosh. I guess long story short, I was contacted by a psychic who told me that I am one of Ted Bundy's reincarnated victims. Her name was Brenda Carroll Ball. And me and you had a really good discussion on your last podcast too about how we both don't believe that, like, when you get reincarnated, it has to happen instantly. It's not like you die and then you are birthed as a baby in that same day. It can happen at any point. So no, I wasn't born when she died, but it could happen anytime. But yeah, me and her have a ton in common. We're both, have like long dark hair. We were both like avid travelers, both went to a lot of concerts in our life. She actually wasn't reported as missing for 3 weeks because all of her friends and family just thought she was on a road trip again. And that's like literally me. And then also I've always had a strange thing with my neck and like anybody touching my neck or any neck stuff that happens in movies. I'm like, nope, I don't want to look at it. And she, as the story goes, allegedly, this is debatable because this was out of his mouth, but I guess towards the end, Ted Bundy said that she came home with him or wherever they went. It was consensual. They had consensual sex. And then when she was sleeping in the middle of the night, he strangled her. But who fucking knows if that's true because he's a gross liar. So was it consensual? Nobody knows. But that makes a lot of sense why I would have a weird thing with my neck. And then again, we talked about this last time too, but I have a weird past life thing, I believe. I haven't ever had a psychic tell me this, but I have a weird past life thing with the Titanic too. So I'm like, cool, is every death I've ever had just like tragic and famous? Like, what am I in for in this one? So...
You know what? It's so funny. So many people, including myself and my brother and stuff, just have this like tie to the Titanic. And I don't know what it is. People are so fascinated by it. People feel so like nostalgic about it. And I feel like so many people feel like they were connected in some way. And I can't figure out what that is because we couldn't have all been on the Titanic. Like, yeah. It's just, or either that or everybody that was like, I meet in my circle or something, because I know so many people that have this like connection to it. So it could be something like that too. But
yeah, I don't know if it's like a lot of those people were from different countries, from different areas, and they all converged on this one thing. And then like the tragedy of it all, like just reverberated through a lot of like all of their ancestors. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's this, there's an old paranormal concept, metaphysical concept. You guys just reminded me of it when you were talking. But there was this idea, it's kind of related to reincarnation, but it was called lifing. And what lifing is, and again, this was something from like the 30s and 40s, it was when people die kind of unexpectedly or tragically, their spirit remains around to get more life. And so it pops into multiple people's bodies across the years to have more experiences, the experiences they never had because they died early. And so I wonder if events like the Titanic, like you have such a great loss of life, like those people like bounce around and they're like, oh, I want to be Bridget for a little while and see what that life is like. Oh, I want to be Jessica for a little while and see what that's. I want to be John for a little while. And they pop in and then all of a sudden, all of us feel like we have a connection, and we do because they were lifing with us.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I feel like that's
that
plausible.
Makes sense.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility there. Well, that's a lot to ponder then.
That is.
So back to Michigan, Hans. Mackinac Island. I was gonna say the Grand Hotel, which is incredible. If the listeners have not seen it, it's this amazing, beautiful hotel. It's huge. It's white. It's gorgeous. A movie is called Somewhere in Time, I think.
Yeah, it's a great movie too. If people haven't seen it, they should see it.
Makes me cry every time I watch it. But if you haven't seen that movie, I definitely highly recommend it. But it takes place at this mansion, or this hotel, I should say. And it's one of the places I think about most when I think of Mackinac Island. But there's so many spots that are haunted on Mackinac Island.
Yeah, the whole island is haunted. It's, it's one of these places that has been there and has been used by the people in the area throughout antiquity. And so you have a lot of original first inhabitants of North America who lived there and grew up there and had it be, it was a magical place to them, right? It's the giant turtle, which is Mackinac, right? So it's this giant sacred space in the middle, in the lake. And then you have, of course, once the French and English get in there and take over, like then you have wars and people dying. So there's so much tragedy on the island itself. And it started off as a spiritual place where you could go to commune with spirits, and it wasn't, there weren't wars and stuff that had been fought there at that time. But yeah, I feel like everywhere on that place you go, there's just a very odd vibe that you are in a weird, magical, spiritual place.
There is. There's like UFO stuff there too. There's everything there.
Yeah. I feel when I've gone there just a couple of times, but every time I go there, I just feel, and it's interesting because I feel this way on the Queen Mary too. I just feel like very nostalgic. Like I feel like I just walked back in time, but I've been here before. I feel very connected, and I feel like I don't want to leave, and I can't wait to come back. There's just like this very like feeling of a connection there.
Yeah, and the other great thing about Mackinac is, and one of the reasons I love going there, is it's heavily like there's a ton of fairy stories on Mackinac Island. Like people encountering like gnomes and nature spirits and seeing fairies and fairy lights and that stuff I love. Like that's high strangeness to its most weird, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure. just to let people know too, if you're not familiar with Mackinac Island, it's completely car free. You have to take a ferry, like a boat ferry, out to the island, or I think there's like a small airport at certain times of the year you can fly in. I think helicopter in or something. But there's no cars except for like the local ambulance or something like that on the whole island. So everything is bikes and horses and little like coach rides around. So it's very cute. It really feels like you're back in time. They're famous for their fudge.
Oh yeah.
And
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just really, really cute. And it's very special if you ever get a chance to go there. I highly recommend it.
I do not recommend, years and years ago, I do not recommend going there in the winter when you have to take a snowmobile across the lake.
No. Okay, everybody says no, but for some reason, I want to do it.
It is very scary. It's like 5.5 miles across a lake, and you're hoping like this was years ago when I did this, but like the company that was taking us, I was like, don't I even get like a inflatable jacket or something in case we crack through the ice? And he was like, no, if we crack through the ice, that's not going to save you.
Oh my God.
And then you get on a snowmobile and you drive for 5 miles out of it was wild.
Was it lined with the Christmas trees?
I think they did have Christmas trees then, yeah.
Because that's what they said. Like the whole lake freezes over. And for part of the year, they can bring an icebreaker in, like a boat that like breaks up the ice and get people still to and from the island. But then at a certain point, it's completely like iced over. And so they make a road going across it with the thickest part of the ice, hopefully. But they line that so you stay on the path with Christmas trees all the way down. And that just sounds magical too.
There's so much funny stuff about Mackinac. I was there one year as they were closing the island down. And like you said, there are these ferry boats that take people back and forth. And so they were closing the island down. And I was getting one of the last ferries back to mainland. And I didn't realize that I was, aside from the person driving the boat and like 2 or 3 other people, the rest of the ferry was filled with the horses. Like they were taking horses off the island.
Yeah.
And so I was like on this boat with all these horses. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing.
It is. They did tell me that they take the horses off on the ferries at the very end. But I feel like, I don't know, it's very shining like to me. Like that seems very cool to be on the island when it's kind of shut down and sort of, I know you're never there fully by yourself. I know there's other people that stay year round, but very few.
Yeah, I think during the winter, if I'm remembering what my friend Todd said, Todd Clement runs like the ghost stuff there.
Yeah.
I think he said it's like 120 people are there during the winter. So it's not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Doesn't it just seem like a really magical place to be at Christmas time? Like 100%. It's all snowy and the shops are so cute. And I just feel like, and if I don't know if there's any horses still there, but the horses with the carriages and stuff, like I just feel like, dreamy to have like a cute house there and spend Christmas there.
Yeah. And you probably can for, $10 or $20 million.
Yeah.
Maybe this is another lifetime I'm thinking of.
Right.
I want to bring up too, we have last time on the podcast with you, I had said that we were going on a trip soon and we were going to go to LA for the first time. And when me and Tenney were there, it was the first time ever me and him have seen a ghost at the exact same time.
Where? Tell me everything.
I actually found it on Verbo, not Airbnb, but it was like a Verbo. It was a rental house. It was a mansion. And we stayed in the pool house, like they rented out their pool house. And it was like a very open concept pool house. Tenney was in the bed, but then it like looked out into a living room and it had a fold down couch. So I was over there. And in the middle of the night, we both saw a full body apparition. Like I heard moving and I thought he was going into the kitchen. And then I saw the thing and then I went back to sleep. And then I woke up and he's like, hey, how's it going? How you feeling? I'm like, good. And then I was like, Tenney, this place is haunted.
And I said, yeah, I know.
I know.
I saw something standing at the edge of your bed last night.
Right. And then he drew it and it was exactly what I saw.
Oh my God. What area were you guys staying in?
It was...
Was that Pasadena?
Yes, I think so. Pasadena, or is Altadena, is that a place too? Mm-hmm. I think it might have been there. But yeah, it was like it was a full body upper. It was like a black shape of like an old woman. It was like a hunched over old woman with like a scarf over her head.
She had like a babushka on.
Yeah, and he drew it to a T. I'm like, that's quite literally exactly what I saw. And me and him have seen ghosts a bunch of times, but always separately. And this was the first time that we laid our eyes on the same freaking ghost. Like you said it on your last episode. You all three saw that ghost, so you knew it was real. Like, that's rare.
It's so rare. To see one at all is rare, but to have multiple people see it at the same time is like golden.
Yeah, but it gets even crazier because that lady, the last day we were there, she was like, oh, if you ever want to rent this again, just let me know. And she gave us her phone number. And then she continued to like explain to us that her late husband is the person who designed the Renaissance Center in Detroit. We're like, what?
Yeah.
That's our only building. That's our only skyline building. And we're from there and we're way in California. Like, how is this happening?
Yeah, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
I know. It was such a cool property.
When I was looking up haunted places in Michigan, there's one spot that kept coming up over and over again, and I've never heard of it. Never been there. I think I've been through the town once, but it's called the Terrace Inn and 1911 Restaurant in Petoskey.
Oh yeah, Petoskey. Yeah. I've been there a dozen times.
And tell me about it. I have the history here, but like, do you know anything about it?
I just know that it's extremely haunted, that there are guests in the hotel that aren't living. The room, I'm trying to think of the room that I stayed in, it's an old hotel, so the rooms are very small. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have them. How do I explain this? So I'm 6'2". Like I almost couldn't be in this room because I'm 6'2".
Oh, wow.
And so when I went downstairs, I was like, can you move me to like a bigger room? Do you have one that's a little bit bigger just so I can stretch out? The bed was really small and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I said, can you move me? Their first response at the desk was like, oh, is the ghost bothering you? And I was like, oh, no, that's not it at all. Like I would enjoy that actually. But no, the Terrace Inn is really cool. And yeah, it's another one of those situations where there's kind of a dining room area and sometimes you will hear piano playing in that room and there's no piano in that room. I mean, it's wired for sound, but you can tell real piano being played over, someone's Bluetooth speaker that's there.
Yeah.
Very cool hotel.
Yeah. It just says that if you go there and you ask the desk clerk for the inn's ghost files, they'll hand you over this thick folder with all these accounts from guests and employees. And so there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there used to be a convention there every year. They don't do it anymore, but I went to that convention for like 12 years in a row, and it was always a great time.
Yeah. And then I'm always fascinated by the Paulding light. I had to ask you guys about the Paulding light.
So
I haven't been. I know about it, but I haven't been.
The Paulding light is one of those mystery lights that appears it's in the UP.
Yeah.
And you go out, and you can stand in the forest and you'll see it rise up out of the forest. Sometimes it's over the train tracks. And so there's one of those legends that it's like the lightman from the train and he's swinging it. The problem is the Algonquin speaking people and the original inhabitants that were here also saw it long before there were trains. So they called it a earth spirit light. And then once the trains came in, people were like, and now even I think University of Michigan went there a few years ago to try and reproduce it. And they were like, oh, it's just car headlights bouncing off of the fog. But it's in a place where, yes, that it could be that sometimes, but the reports of it being like red, the size of it, the fact that you can walk toward it and you can like, as you get closer to it, it'll stay where it's at. But then if you walk like 2 or 3 more steps, it'll immediately zoom away from you. So it's interacting with you to a certain degree. So it's not car headlights bouncing off of, it's not a temperature inversion of headlights.
I've always wanted to go check it out. So I guess at a certain time of night, people go to this park and they park there and you wait for it. And there's people lined up watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little guard rail where you can kind of park and wait for it to come out, and then everybody will see it. And you can take pictures of it, and it's there. And that's the other thing too. Like if it's a temperature inversion, if it's headlights or lights from the city bouncing off of somewhere, then it shouldn't be viewable from multiple places, which it is.
Yeah.
Like you can go and see it's further away. Like it's an object. It's not just, lights bouncing off of a cloud.
Yeah.
And if people were seeing it before the invention of electricity, then obviously it's not like just a reflection of an electric light.
Right, definitely.
There's all sorts of weird stuff up there too. There's like a bunch of fairy stories too up in the UP too.
I watched like a whole, I don't know if it was a Dateline or a 48 Hours on some stuff in the the UP. There was this whole like crazy murder. Neighbors killed each other and then barbecued them and fed them to the other neighbors.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I'm just like, what's happening?
That documentary is called Dead North.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
That's one of my favorite true crime docs ever. It's like it seems so normal, and then it gets to that part, and you're like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?"
Right? I'm like,
it's
wait,
crazy.
What am I hearing right now? This is like one of the worst stories I've ever, like worst but best stories I've ever heard.
Yep.
And then Bridget, when you went to Michigan Paracon, did you fly into the UP?
Yes.
Okay, so the airport, that little airport that you flew into in UP, that in the 1950s was a military base. Mm-hmm. And in 1953, a UFO got spotted over Lake Superior.
Yes.
And they scrambled a jet out of that airport. And that jet disappeared and they never recovered the plane. It vanished chasing the UFO. It's called the Kinross incident.
I've looked that up before. That is like insane.
Yeah. And you were at the airport. You landed on the same runway. And
they were saying something about like Canada being involved too in that. Like I think, didn't they?
Yeah. So the American government was like, well, what are we supposed to do? So they were like, oh, it was a Canadian. It wasn't a UFO. It was a Canadian plane and it was off course. Well, I mean, like, as soon as Canada heard that America was blaming Canada, Canada was like, nope, it wasn't us. Like, here's all our charts. Here's all our planes. Like, they were all on course. It wasn't us. Don't blame us for it.
Yeah.
And nothing of the plane was ever recovered. Like, when you have a jet like that hit the lake, if it were to have gone in the water, there's like flotation debris and oil slicks. And like, none of that was ever found. Like, that plane has never been found. The two pilots, Felix Moncla and Robert Wilson, were never recovered from it. And yeah, it's one of those cases that no one ever talks about, but it's like unbelievable. It's amazing.
It is unbelievable. I remember reading about it and like doing just like some Google researches and stuff on it. And I'm like, this is just fascinating. And it's crazy that more people don't talk about it and that this isn't like still a major mystery that people are working on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because somebody knows the answer.
At this point, I mean, in the 90s, I talked to all the kind of surviving people who had been on the base, and they didn't know anything. And when I talked to them in the 90s, they were all, in their late 70s. I don't think if anybody knew the truth, those people are gone now.
But I think somebody in our government knows the answer.
I would like to believe that, but the thing is, like, when I started, I said earlier, like, my friend who was in assassinations of the 60s and 70s, one of the things we talk about with, like, the JFK papers that still aren't released, like, there's no information available to any of us. Like, even if all of the documents were released, whether it be on Kinross or JFK, like, they've been in the government's possession for 60 years, right? They're not going to have not burned them or thrown them away by now or changed them to, be able to deny anything that they did. So someone might individually know, but I don't think there's any paperwork that we would ever be able to have to prove that they did something wrong.
Yeah. Have you read the book Imminent yet? I
haven't. Not yet.
I was sitting here. Nick was like, he just read it and he's like, you have to read this.
I don't know how I feel about the new wave of UFO stuff.
Why is that? Tell me.
So it's really weird because it really does start like around 2017 is like when it all starts kind of recatching fire. And a lot of the people who are involved right now have ties to people who were involved in the 90s UFO scene. And the 90s UFO scene was a lot of government disinformation, a lot of people who formerly worked for the government. I mean, there's even I don't know if you know anything about like the Benowitz case or anything like that, but like the government in the 90s literally drove a guy crazy, and he eventually died by his own hand. And the government did that. Like they told him like UFO stuff until he went crazy. And it was just fake UFO stuff. It was to get him off of the trail. And a lot of the people who were involved with the Benowitz incident, like disappeared because it was so tragic and horrible what they had done to this gentleman. They disappeared for like 20 years. And then in 2017, like all of a sudden it starts to get popular again. And there's all these old government guys who have information, and a lot of them have ties to that stuff that happened in the 90s. So I get really touchy and weary about the way disclosure is happening right now.
Yeah. It just seems like there's a lot coming out and a lot happening right now. And then it comes out, and then it just like crazy stuff comes out, you know, like actual footage, like the military's like, oh, we don't know what this is. And here it is. But then I just feel like people just keep going about their day. I'm like, no, wait, did you hear what they just said? Like, this is crazy news. And we just act like it's nothing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I talk about in lectures, and I've talked with Jessica about this too, is like people are saying, like, why is the government so interested right now? Like, why is it popping so hard? And not that there's not UFOs, not that there aren't government insiders. I think that all that stuff is probably real. But like the average age, you would probably assume it's older, but like the average age of people in governmental positions of power right now is about 58, which means that the people who are in positions of power in corporations and in the government, this is the first generation of people in a position of import who grew up with science fiction. They watched Star Trek. They saw Star Wars when they were in their teens. They read science fiction books, and they have an interest in it, just the way anybody of that age, and I'm of that age, like I have an interest in it. So if I get into a position of power, like I'm going to start talking about it, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's any more real or less real than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a money train though too, because like same as the paranormal, once these UFO people realize that they can say X, Y, and Z, and then they're on a convention getting $10,000 for a speaker fee, they'll say anything. So it's like some of these people have integrity and some of them don't, and only people deep into this shit know who does and know who doesn't. So a good way to find out would be like, go ahead and look if me and Tenney follow them, and if we don't, there's your answer.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. All right, I know I've kept you guys. I just have some fun roundup questions for you, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
Scariest paranormal place that you've ever been?
Ooh.
We both have different ones.
What's yours? Do you know yours, Jess?
Yeah, my two are Ohio State Reformatory and Evans City Cemetery in Pennsylvania.
What happened in Evans? Was it just creeped out?
I just couldn't breathe and I was scared to death and I almost fell down. It's just the scariest place I've ever. At that and OSR, I had no control over my legs and arms. I was shaking like a cartoon.
That happened at OSR too?
And that does not happen to me.
I think
anywhere else.
I think if she gave two, I'll give two. I really do think scariest, the place where I felt the most unnerved, is a place called Holmesburg Prison, which is in Pennsylvania. It's not open to ghost hunting or anything like that. We did it on the show Ghost Stalkers, and I think we were the only people who have ever investigated it. But when I was in there, like, it was the closest that I felt. There was a moment where I realized, like, the feeling that I had before I died the first time when I was 18, like I got that feeling again when I was there, and I've never had that anywhere else. So Holmesburg is like number one. And then you've mentioned it. We've mentioned it a lot in this episode. I really feel like I will sometimes get really anxious and unnerved on the Queen Mary.
That's interesting.
Because I've definitely had. What's yours? You got to tell us yours.
Mine is the Myrtles Plantation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I still haven't been there.
Oh, Nick and I had the craziest night there. I've only stayed there one night, one time. And we just had the craziest night there. And it was probably one of the most active places I've ever been. And we love this stuff, but I was so scared. Like I literally couldn't get out of bed and I didn't even want to open my eyes because I was positive there was someone in the room with us.
Oh my God.
And
So
it was like
strange.
a 1 hour of like crazy. Like I was trying to do ghost hunting earlier and nothing was happening. So we went to bed. And at 3 a.m, we were woken up by like pounding up the stairs and furniture moving and kids laughing and playing.
Oh my
and
God.
the EMF meter like all the way lit up. And my voice recorder was on the floor by my suitcase trying to start on its own, and just like all kinds of stuff going on. And we were just holding on to each other going, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And the room was so thick and heavy. It was like you could almost not breathe. And I did not want to open my eyes because I was 100% sure there was somebody standing there with us. I just knew there definitely was, and I was not about to see.
Oh my God.
That heaviness.
I had the worst migraine that night. And I have medication for migraines, but I had taken it and it didn't help. And I had taken a second one, which I usually don't have to do, and it still didn't help. And it was so bad. Like I was nauseous and I just did not have the energy to like get up and like try and experience this. And looking back on it, I think that was part of the haunting.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say, and you jumped a second point too into it. You were talking about the heaviness that you felt at Myrtle's. So there was specifically a night on the Queen Mary where I kind of got up and I went out onto the deck to smoke, and it was late at night, and it felt super heavy on the outside, and I was standing at the railing and I got this splitting headache, and it just like came out of nowhere, and I was convinced that someone was trying to push me over the side of the ship. And like Jessica, like you were saying, like all of a sudden like my legs didn't work, and I was like, oh no, I can't get out of this, like something is here. And then like it all went away. It just like zip, it just like stopped. And then I was like, fuck this, I gotta get out of here.
Oh my gosh. See, I love the Queen Mary so much. And I
do too.
Before they they were closed for a little while. And before they reopened last May, they let me and my mom and Holly come and stay on the ship before it was open. So it was just like us and like there was a security guard walking around and one housekeeper who had the keys to every single door in the place. And she was like, let's go play. And we just went everywhere on that ship. Everywhere.
That's amazing. Jessica's first time was last year when we went to Los Angeles.
It was.
It's incredible.
And it did not disappoint.
No.
It is very beautiful.
It's beautiful. And every time I go, I have like something that happens. It might be minor. Like one time I heard a ghost cat. And then and they do have a ghost cat on the ship. And there's somebody that has a picture of it. It's online.
Cute.
And I grabbed it. But like it's like amazing. Like
I had
just
a ghost
feel like
woman in my I was in one of the rooms taking a shower, and I thought like a maid had come in to do the room, but then like I could see her silhouette on the outside of the shower screen, like she was in the bathroom with me.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay, I guess like no, with this like whatever, personal space isn't a thing. But I was like, I'm gonna pull this curtain and like freak her out and give her a show, like she's there. And I pulled the curtain, and as I did it, there was nobody there, and the door to my room slammed at the same time. And I was like, oh shit, like someone was just in here, like ghost-wise.
I wish we could all do Queen Mary together one night. That'd be so fun.
It would be fun.
We could.
Yeah, well, let me know when you guys are in LA. Okay, back to my questions. Favorite paranormal tool besides yourselves?
My favorite paranormal tool is an analog cassette recorder, like an actual tape cassette recorder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't really use anything. I just go by my gut. I like doing EVP sessions. I like asking questions and seeing if we get anything. So I guess like just a digital recorder.
Okay. What would you say is the best evidence either of you have ever captured?
Me and Tenney were at an asylum in Wisconsin, and I have a video. I was down a hallway by myself, and something was like playing with me. Something was banging on something. And every time I would get past the room and it would bang behind me, then I would walk a little bit further and it would bang in front of me. Like it was playing with me, and I have it all on video. So I was nuts.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
For me, it's crazy that I have to default to a television show. But when Chad and I did Ghost Stalkers, we captured what I still think to this day is like the best full-bodied apparition on camera. It's like a 7-foot tall naked man walking through a hallway, and no one it still blows my mind that people don't talk about it. Like it's unbelievable. It doesn't have any sound. So it's like, I don't even know how you would fake that, because you're in a giant empty building, and if you're walking around, like, there's echoing of footsteps, there's no footsteps. And again, it's like, where do you get a 7-foot tall person? Why are they naked? Why are they walking around in the pitch black at night? Because it's filmed in night vision. So there's no lights. It's a person walking around in the complete darkness. And it blows my mind to this day that we captured it, and that no one talks about it. As a matter of fact, the network didn't even want to show it, because they were like, this doesn't even look like a ghost. It just looks like a naked man. And we were like, but it's not. It's a ghost.
Where can people see it?
There's probably clips on it on YouTube and stuff. I think I have one on my Weird Lectures YouTube site, which is just YouTube/Weird Lectures. And I call it The Thing in the Hallway.
Yeah.
And you can watch this weird, shambling, naked man walk through this hallway. It's very strange.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Do you guys carry anything to protect yourselves?
I really don't. I have stuff that I carry with me all the time, like, that relaxes. So I'll always have a silver dime on me, and I always carry a piece of chalk, and I'll always have like a single dice on me. But over the years, it's just become kind of a ritual to have those things to make me feel like I'm grounded.
Okay.
I usually have crystals on me, and not in a protective way. Just, again, like you said, just to like ground myself and to like combat against anxiety and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. The last one, paranormal place that you haven't been yet, but are dying to go to.
I have always wanted to go to South American temples, like Sacsayhuaman in Peru, just because they seem very metaphysical, paranormal to me in the way that they built the structures, the stories surrounding them. So, like, I know that some people wouldn't consider that paranormal stuff, but I feel like ancient sites like that really need to be investigated more.
Yeah.
Mine's Bran Castle, or Dracula's Castle.
Ooh.
I need to go there someday or I'll die. And then Stonehenge too, which you've been to and I haven't, but I'll get there.
You'll get there.
I know.
Mine's Edinburgh, Scotland, and I'm going the end of this month.
Oh, cool.
So lucky.
Finally. I can't wait.
I feel like I have a couple places bookmarked there. I'll have to send them to you I feel like I have a couple. I think there's a town there that has like the most UFO sightings in the world or something, or
Really?
near there, and I bookmarked it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, definitely let me know if you have any suggestions for there. You guys, it's so good catching up. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me. Sorry we went a little long. I just had so much stuff. I could have kept going.
We're always happy to talk to you.
Tell everybody listening about your What's Up Weirdo podcast, how they can listen, how they can follow you guys, and all that stuff.
Easiest way to find us on everything is linktree.com/whatsupweirdo. I have the link to our podcast. I have the link to our socials. I have the link to everything, our Patreon, our YouTube, our everything. So just linktree.com/whatsupweirdo, and you can find us and hear us talk about crazy stuff on the podcast, paranormal stuff, non-paranormal stuff, movies, anything. We've got all the stories.
To quote Jessica on the newest episode that drops tomorrow, she says, "You came here for ghosts and Bigfoot, and you get landscaping."
I know. We talk about normal stuff and weird stuff.
Oh, and you have Old Town Roasting What's Up Weirdo coffee.
This was so weird. Just a real quick story. I was doing my podcast at this haunted location, the Kellogg House in Orange County, and I show up, and Darcy, my person that I was going to be interviewing, hands me this, and I was like, "Wait, I'm so confused right now. What's happening?"
You're like, they're everywhere.
It's like when worlds collide. You know, like you just know that somebody knew somebody, and you're like, "Wait, what is happening?"
That's why I love this community. It's so small.
It really is. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Ghost Bunny Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on my spooky adventures, and I look forward to sharing a new ghost story with you guys each week. Please subscribe to our podcast. You're always the first to know when a new episode is out, and follow us on social media at Ghost Bunny Podcast on Instagram for photos and sneak peeks, and at Ghost Bunny Podcast on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.